The mic on, thank you. And this is short, got a short wire here right now, and I have to lean way over to get close enough to the mic, but I'll do that. All right. So let me call this meeting to order, this August 10 PPACG Board of Directors meeting. And our first order of business is to establish a quorum. And as always, Andy, if I could ask you to get that established for us, let's make sure we know who we have.
Sure. What I would suggest, Mr. Chair, is maybe start with introductions in the room. We'll go around for the board members and others that are at the table, and then I'll call out those that are online as well, board members.
Okay, great. We'll start with that. So starting with myself, Commissioner Stan Vanderwerf, I'm present.
Sharon Thompson, Mayor Fountain.
Yolanda, City Council District 4. It's not going on.
It looked like it was on because there's a red light right at the mic, and that was on, but it's off at the moment. Now it's
There
on
it
again.
is.
There we go.
Yolanda Avila, City Council, District 4, Colorado Springs.
Thank you.
Nancy Hendrum, City Council District 5.
Ruin Gardine, Town Callahan, Mayor Pro Tem.
Richard Zamora, CDOT.
Todd Dixon, Mayor, Green Mountain Falls.
Dave Donaldson, Colorado Springs City Council, District 1.
Andy Gunning, PPACG.
Don Wilson, Mayor, Town of Monument.
Very good. Let's go through who we have online here.
The City
Kelly
Commission-
Case, Mayor Pro Tem, Woodland Park.
Thank you.
Cami Bremer, El Paso County Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Dick Elsner, Park County Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, and I think that is it as far as currently seated board members. So we do have a quorum.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. And we've done some introductions around the table. I don't know if we have any introductions for new members that are online, but that's kind of a next thing to do here. Let's see. We have the agenda pulled up as well. Just for those that are online, do we have any new members that have not been introduced before to the PPACG? Feel free to just chime in. All right, hearing none, let's go on to item number 2, to approve the agenda for today. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to take a look at the agenda. First off, are there any questions from anybody regarding the agenda? Questions or comments or corrections? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Sharon Thompson, move to approve.
Don Wilson, second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Let's go ahead and proceed with the vote. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is now approved. Let's move on to public comments. And the very first thing that I would like to start with public comments is to offer a moment of silence. I think it might be well known to all, but El Paso County, our sheriff's office, has lost one of its finest, a law enforcement officer, Deputy Andrew Perry, and it is a tragic loss. And I just want to say a few things, and then we'll go to a moment of silence. First off is the funeral is set now for Monday next week, 11 a.m. At the New Life Church, the large church on the north end of town. There will be a lot of people. There will be law enforcement officers from all over the country and a few from other countries, along with a very large number of community leaders and members from the community. And once again, it is such a tragic loss. He is survived by his wife and children. He is an Iraq combat veteran. He served in law enforcement in California for several years, then moved out here. Everybody liked him. He was a gentleman, and he was dedicated to the cause of public safety in our community. And I want to just say that I've had many people reach out to me, and there have been thousands that have reached out to the sheriff's office. And many of the local public agencies in town here have offered their condolences and offered a moment of silence. I know, for example, the town of Callahan has done that. I know that the town of Fountain has done that. I would imagine many others have also done that. Thank you.
Colorado Springs did also.
Colorado Springs did that also. Thank you. We did that as well at our board meeting. And then I also read the 23rd Psalm after we had our moment of silence. It is a tragic loss, and I appreciate everybody reaching out. And one last comment that I have, and then we'll do a moment of silence, and then I'll just see if anybody else has additional comments. I would ask, if you haven't done so already, take the opportunity to reach out to the sheriff's office. Maybe give Sheriff Elder himself a call. If you can't get a hold of him, just leave a message. This is a time when we need to ensure that our law enforcement officials, our deputy sheriffs, our warranted officers, the ones that go out in harm's way every day, that they know how much we care for them, because they are grieving, and this is a time for them to know that they are loved, so that we don't have more challenges going forward. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to offer a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate that. And I'll just open the floor if anybody wishes to offer any comments at this point. No need to do that if you don't feel compelled to do so, but just wanted to give the opportunity if anybody would like to talk. Mr. Donaldson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to express my own appreciation for Deputy Andrew Peary and his family and their sacrifice and service to our county and city and citizens of Colorado, and his service to our country in the military. So I shared his, military service. My brother's a police officer, recently retired, so feel deeply connected to this. And this morning on the radio, I'm going to add this in, I heard the victim's wife, the lady who was killed, and I believe she was actually a Marine Corps veteran. And the mother's concerned that her daughter's kind of being forgotten. So I would ask all of us also to remember her. She's another victim in this crime. So let's remember both of them. And thank you for the opportunity to express that.
Thank you for your kind words. Anybody else? Yes, Mayor Wilson. Oh, I'm sorry. Mayor Thompson.
Yes, thank you. I agree with what everybody said, and especially what you said, Mr. Donaldson. I'm not choked up. I just got a little tickle here. I know there's a lot of people struggling down the Fountain Valley Way because, obviously the incident happened very close in our area. And I just encourage anyone who's concerned or still scared to please reach out for mental health services. They are everywhere. They are available, and there are many of them available at no charge to you. So the schools have great counselors on hand, and they are set up for the kids. So if you or your kids need anybody to talk to, please reach out. And Councilmember Hinton, who sits right next to me, actually served with him in Iraq. So very close to home in our area. And thank you to the Peary family and everyone, but please reach out for help if you need it.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate the comments about reaching out and also, mental health services. I'm happy to report that the sheriff's office is well resourced, does have a wide array of mental health services, very important right now. But I can also tell you that if you know a deputy sheriff, if you know anybody in the sheriff's office, give them a call, do a temperature check, and just see how they're doing. It's very important for them to hear from all of us. Thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
Mayor Pro Tem Roland Gardine, my father was a marshal. And he passed away in 1972. But this gentleman here that we're talking about was a gentleman. He actually was professional, but he was a very good gentleman and a father. So we all in the town recognize that.
Thank you very much. And he lived in the northeast part of El Paso County, in case you all didn't know. So anybody else? All right. Thank you very much for all of your kind words. I see under public comments, Andy, you mentioned Jody Barker, AAA, and I think, does he have an announcement or some comments to make?
He does. We're in the process of updating our 4-year plan, and we have a series of community conversations that are coming up that he wanted to just briefly brief the board on.
I said he scared the bejeebers out of me doing interpublic comments. I thought it meant he was going to announce he's leaving. So,
No, you're stuck with me.
oh, thank
So,
heavens.
at least
Okay.
For a little while.
I heard a thank heavens after you said that, so that's good. All right, Mr. Barker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Yes, every 4 years, the area agencies on aging across the nation, per the regulations within the Older Americans Act and their individual state acts, are required to put together an area plan, or sometimes known as the 4-year plan, because it does go across a 4-year span. There are multiple pieces to that. It's a very complex process, but we have begun that. It's due to the state in the spring. I thought I'd give you a little rundown of what is involved and how it works. And if you should have any questions from folks within your jurisdictions, please feel free to send them our way. It really starts off with what is known as the CASOA. That's the Community Assessment Survey for older adults. That's a random sampling size of surveys that goes out to folks over the age of 60 across the state of Colorado. That data is analyzed and ultimately broken down by county and our 3-county region. Those surveys are in the process of going out right now. So if you should get a call, please encourage them to complete that for us. The more data we have, the more effective we can be, as you might imagine. So the community conversations that Mr. Gunning mentioned are just that. They are listening sessions where staff and volunteers will go out to each county and locations within the county. We have a series of questions. They're leading questions. We want to encourage people to think about the services that they receive, how they think about aging in their community, how they might think about aging and staying within the community, and the challenges and the needs that are incorporated into those decisions. We do have a variety of staff involved with that. We also have volunteers from our Regional Advisory Council who will be involved. We start off next week, as a matter of fact, in Park County. We'll be at the Shawnee Community Center in Bailey, and then over to Fairplay to the county building. And so thank you for the loan of those spaces to those in Park County. We'll also be in Teller County in 2 different locations, Cripple Creek and Woodland Park. We'll have between 4 to 6 locations in El Paso County to make sure that we're encompassing as many locations as possible. We'll be north, south, we'll be out to Calhoun, and so we'll be including those as well. We have a lot to do with that. They'll go through September. Late October is when we will hear the results, the preliminary results of the survey that went out. We'll use that information from the survey, the data we've collected from those listening sessions, the community conversations, and then we will work as a team to write that report. The beauty of this report is it leads to through our processes in a variety of areas. Like I mentioned, while it is required at the state and federal level, it is information that we provide to the state. The state consolidates that information across all 16 regions, AAA regions across the state of Colorado, incorporates that into the state plan on aging, which then is presented to the legislature. Ultimately has a lot to do with our funding formulas. That information also plays into our local strategic plan. It helps us determine our priorities, what we're going to work on specifically across that next four years. And it is a living document. Every quarter, we have a team of staff and volunteers from our Regional Advisory Council who sit down and we review that. What have we done? What's in process? What are our goals? And so it is a true living document. It's not just a check box and set it on a shelf. So it does guide what we do within the Area Agency on Aging and ultimately speaks into, like I said, the priorities and the strategic planning process for PPACG. So just wanted to share that's coming up. It's in process already. Folks have been meeting to pull things together, and we're really excited about what this is going to tell us as we're kind of moving away from some of the restrictions under the COVID processes. But we're very excited to be able to get out to our communities and learn a little bit more from those that we serve. That's all I have right now. We will be doing a draft presentation to the board in the spring when we have that together before we finalize and get on to the state. And that'll be due to the state in March. So
Great.
We'll present that in the fall, correct? Or spring?
probably spring. Yes,
Oh,
there's a lot yet
okay,
to
well, yeah.
determine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you so much for those comments, and I appreciate what you're talking about there. It's awesome. Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Barker? All right, we appreciate the announcement. Thank you. And I believe, Andy, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're moving down your list
I
of
am.
items here, and I do have bad news as far as losing an employee. Jess B, as you affectionately know her, Jessica Bechtel's last day with us will be Friday of this week, so this is her last board meeting, so I'm going to embarrass her for just a moment. And come on up, Jess. We'll get a picture and a small token of appreciation on behalf of the board. She provides so much board support, helps run the board meetings and so many other committee meetings here with PPACG. Has been with us for about 4+ years. I think we were joking last week that given that you live in the Pueblo area, you're going to reduce your VMT and your greenhouse gas emissions. We're going to take credit for that. But yeah, we're going to miss her. She's made our organization so much stronger in so many countless ways that you don't necessarily see on a day-to-day basis, but we see them, and just huge shoes to fill as our office manager. So we're going to miss you big time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you want to say a few words? You don't have to if you don't want to, but you're welcome to if you'd like. It's your chance.
I've learned a lot in 5 years, and it's been great.
Well, thank you very much. On behalf, I'm sorry. Yes, please, Yolanda, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair. So I learn and study through Audially. So Jessica and her team, what they do is they break down the packet and they put it in order for me to be able to prepare for these meetings. And so I really want to thank her for breaking down that packet and getting it ready for it to be downloaded Audially. So thank you so much, Jessica, and I'm going to miss you.
Thank you, council member. That is a heartfelt thank you if I ever heard one right there. Thank you. Yes, Mayor.
Jessica, I can't tell you how many times you've gotten me online. I just brought you my iPad, like, Jessica, here you go. And I really, really appreciate, your understanding, your patience, and I'm a very visual person, always having a packet here ready for me every month. So thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yes, Councilmember Donaldson.
Yeah, Jessica, I want to say thank you for, what I realize is I don't say that enough to you. I haven't said it enough because you've helped me many times since I started a little over a year ago. And you're always kind and quick to respond. And I'm sure you do the same thing for everybody. So I can't imagine how many people you do these little things for and make our experience here that much better. So I want to find out, I guess, privately where you're going to, but thank you for what you've done. And I really want you to know that even if we don't say it all the time, it was always like, man, she does a good job. Gee, she's quick. So thank you.
Nonprofit. So I'll share it.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Close to home.
I know.
Grant
Yes,
writer.
Believe me, we are looking at ways to rope her back in. possibly.
Yeah, well, thank you again.
Thank you. I'll just mention also on behalf of the entire board and myself, thank you for your, oh, do we have a hand raised? I'm so sorry. Oh, Commissioner Bremer, please go ahead. Oh, I'll just read it. She has stated here, we will miss you, Jess. Thank you for your dedication and service to our citizens and board. That's awesome.
Thank you.
And on behalf of the entire board, I'd like to express the same sentiments that others have mentioned as well. Thank you so much for your service to our community. And I think serving is one of those wonderful, wonderful things which you've been doing here. It's awesome that you're going to go down and continue to serve in Care and Share. That's great. You know what that means to me is you've got the heart for it.
I'll be back at campaigning and donation time.
I bet you will. You know where we are, so you'll be easy for you to find us. All right. Again, thank you so much for all of that. And you know, this is actually one of these important things, right? We have expressed some sentiment and mourned the loss of one of our own, but we also celebrate the service that many of us do, and we just mentioned that about Jess and the great work that she does, because it is important to celebrate the great things that we all do, to celebrate our lives, to celebrate our communities. And as a result of that, we've got one more thing to celebrate, and that is Yolanda's birthday. So I just want to wish you on behalf of the board and myself, a happy birthday, Yolanda.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You'll one of these times you might want to tell us which anniversary of your 29th birthday are you celebrating. So, sorry. Yeah, there you go. Gotta have a little fun when you do this. So, all right. No requirement to answer that question whatsoever. All right. Thank you very much. Happy birthday. All right. Shall we move forward then to item number 4, our consent items? We have 4A through 4E. These will be voted on as a whole. And let me just offer up to the board. Does anybody have any comments or questions on any of these items at this time? All right. Hearing none. I don't see any comments or hands raised or anything online. Hopefully hopefully we can visually see everybody there. If there's anybody online that needs to speak, just go ahead and chime in, but I think I don't see anybody. All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for item 4.
Don Wilson, motion to approve.
And Councilman Donaldson, second.
Okay, very good. That's been moved and seconded. And I don't think anybody has any comments. Let's go ahead and proceed directly to the vote. All those in favor of approving the consent items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And is there anybody opposed? Okay, those pass unanimously. Let's move on to item number 5, our military installation reports.
And Mr. Chair, I'm looking online to see if any installations are represented this morning, and I'm not seeing any so far. So maybe they could just.
Oh, good morning. This is Lieutenant Colonel Bill McLaughlin from Space Base Delta 1. I can chime in for us if everybody's okay with that.
Yes, please do so.
Just a few quick updates. Our biggest rock that we have coming forward in the near future is that we will be conducting a DoD mandated energy resilience readiness exercise at both Peterson and Schriever. It'll be separate days for the bases. I'm not able to say the exact dates for security reasons, but the long and short of that is that we are going to be cutting off outside power to large portions of the base to test our ability to operate in that denied environment. So we may see some impacts as far as possibly traffic in and around the installation. Some people may be moving on and off. The plan is for workers to come in and work as well as they can without power. Some people may move back home to telework if they find that they can't complete their job because they're out of power. But you know, with what our adversaries may or may not try to do to us in the hopefully distant but maybe near future, it's best for us to practice a little closer to the way we'd have to play. So we're going to be doing that within the very near future. Other than that, for my personal, I just want to thank both the city Department of Public Works and the county Department of Public Works. We've been working on possibly initiating some intergovernmental service agreements to help leverage each other's capabilities. And so those are all still in work, but they've been great partners so far, and we look to continue doing that. And if anybody has, unless anybody has any questions for me, I'll end it there.
Great, thank you very much. Councilmember Donaldson, looks like you have a question or comment.
Yeah, thank you, Colonel. Is this the first time your facility has done one of these energy resilience exercises, or what was the first year we started doing these? I don't recall them when I was in the Army, but I don't think we ever did one.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's a fairly new mandate within the last couple of years. So especially to this scale, I've been at installations where we've done them on a smaller scale independently, but this is to mandate it as we have moved to an environment where we're looking more at peer conflict with some much more capable adversaries than where we're doing this. They're supposed to be a lot more robust, and we're taking a careful approach with it because, of course, there's ongoing missions. So it's not the let's just shut it off at the fence and see what happens that they maybe would like. But this will be the first time in quite some time that they've done anything like this on a scheduled basis. I know there's been unscheduled power outages. Having spent a lot of time out at Schriever in my last year here, I know that base. They've had power outages, but that base was also purpose-built for that thing. Here at Peterson, we might see a little more. So it'll be interesting to say the least, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And this is Commissioner Stan Vanderwerf, also a veteran, and the former chief of the analysis division at NORAD Northcom at Peterson. And I can assure everybody how important it is to train every possible scenario that you can think of, because when you train that way, you get to fight that way. And all these kinds of different scenarios are really, really important. We had lots of those that we worked on all the time for NORAD, and it's important to make sure you know what'll happen when scenario A happens, or make sure you know what'll happen when scenario B happens, and then how do you respond to it. So that's awesome that you guys are going through that exercise, Colonel. I appreciate that very much. I also appreciate your comments about the cooperation going on with the city and the county and our military bases. This may be obvious to you, Colonel, but we care deeply about those relationships. And we feel we have a great relationship with every military facility in our community here. And we're very interested in keeping that way and continuing to work together. So thank you for those kind words as well. Any other comments? Go ahead, please, Colonel, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's go ahead, please.
No, I'm done. Yeah, thanks. Any other comments for the Colonel or questions? All right, seeing none. Do we have anybody else from any of the military bases? That may be the only Colonel we've got today.
Yeah. Morning.
Oh.
This is Melissa Porter calling from the Air Force Academy. How are you?
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Good. So I just have two items for everyone this morning, both related to traffic at our gates. With District 20 schools coming back online next week, we do expect additional traffic, some potential backups at our gates in the mornings, specifically next week with the high schoolers returning. And then it's hard to believe, but Falcon football starts back up. Our first home game is September 3rd at 11 o'clock at Falcon Stadium against Northern Iowa. And then we have the next week on the 10th is against CU at 1:30. And both of those, well, specifically the CU game, we anticipate heavy traffic around the base that day. So just be aware of that if you're traveling to or around the base. And that's all I
Awesome.
have.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the heads up. Yep, football season is gearing up again, and that means we will have some traffic around the Air Force Academy, but that's a happy thing. That means a lot of people want to go to the game. So But it is important for everybody to be safe and just be patient when there's a backup. I'm really excited also about the initiation of the construction for the new visitor center at the Air Force Academy as well. And many of us were able to participate in the groundbreaking for that, which happened recently. And that I think will be a great addition to the community and also very, very beneficial and helpful for the academy itself. Okay, great. And are there any comments for our representative from the academy? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. Do we have any other military installation reports? All right, hearing none, let's go on now to item number 6. And the first one is item 6A, our Title VI amendment for the 5310 mobility program.
That'll be Laura Cruz, our mobility coordinator.
Good morning.
I'm getting cheers from John. Thanks for having me this morning. Laura Cruz, mobility coordinator. I'm coming to you guys today to kind of do an administrative supplement, put together an administrative supplement for our Title VI plan. Our Title VI plan is something that is mandated for MPOs as well as direct recipients of federal funds, specifically federal transit funds, is what I'm talking about today. So we went through a review process when we took on the FTA 5310 program, which is the program that allows us to provide funding to specialized transit providers in the Colorado Springs urbanized area. And when we took this program on, we had an assessment by FTA of all of our policies and procedures, and we passed that assessment. However, they did make suggestions for us to include some language as well as policies to monitor our sub-recipients for Title VI requirements. And so what I am putting before you guys today is a draft supplement for adoption into our current Title VI plan to cover the requirements of monitoring sub-recipients. And our sub-recipients of 5310 funding are Invita and Silver Key Senior Services right now. And so what that means is essentially as a direct recipient, we have to ensure that not only we are following all the federal guidelines, but also our sub-recipients are. And so what's before you are written policies of how we are going to do that moving forward. We already work with our sub-recipients to help put together, their Title VI plans as we started this transition, and monitoring them in terms of having to look at, what kind of supplements they're doing for limited English proficiency, as well as assuring that essentially their services are open to everyone. So I am asking for a motion today, as well as an approval today of this supplement so that we can ensure that we are following FTA's guidelines as a designated recipient.
Great, thank you very much. And for everybody's benefit, if you look at the package and you look at, for example, page, I think it's 26, 27, and 28, there's items highlighted in yellow, and that fooled me for a minute. I thought that was what the changes were, but they are not. That kind of is a process we use in El Paso County. Yellow highlighted means that's the changes. The actual recommended changes are on page 29, and I believe it's the entire page.
Correct.
Okay. So for those of you that have not had a chance to review the actual addition, I'm happy, if you're interested, to give you a minute or two here and go through it and just see if you have any comments. Is anybody interested in doing that?
I would appreciate that,
Okay.
Chair. And also if you could explain why the highlights are there, that would also.
Yes, so FTA did a review of our Title VI plan. And so the highlights, this is kind of what I presented to you guys was actually essentially their letter to us, concurring that we do meet requirements. However, these are some highlighted things that we want you to include moving forward. And so we worked with FTA actually on the language of this. We have sent this through FTA to say, hey, does this meet requirements? And they have approved the language and the additional language to our Title VI plan. So the highlighted document is essentially the review report to us as we took on the designated recipient role.
Yes, thank you. Mayor, go ahead.
These are being stubborn today. I just have some questions about how are the recipients of these being notified of these requirements? And what is the plan to monitor their that they're doing it? And secondly, if the Title VI requirements change, how are the sub-recipients going to be notified, and what is the timeline they have to come in compliance with those?
That's a great question. So this is actually a part of their contract with us. It spells out exactly, you know, the requirements of Title VI as a sub-recipient. And then also what FTA wanted us to show in our policies is how are we going to support those sub-recipients? And so when we first took on the program, some of our providers had no Title VI plans in place because they were operating out of funding that wasn't federal funding. And so when they took that on, we worked with them. We provided templates of how to, you know, put that together, as well as understanding sort of the designated roles that you needed to have within your organization to support your Title VI plan. And so that's sort of what is drafted in this policy is how we're supporting those providers. We also do a yearly assessment of them. Essentially, we have a form that we submit out to them that says, okay, please provide all the documentation that supports your Title VI plan. So I receive those, I evaluate those. If I see that there's some missing things for folks, which we did have one provider last year that was missing some things. And so working with them to ensure that they're actually implementing their Title VI plan. So in terms of changes, you know, we can actually do amendments, what's called a administrative amendment to their contract. And we can also notify, what we would do is notify them, because typically these changes to Title VI requirements happen sort of mid-contract year with our providers. And so as we hear from FTA about these changes, we notify the agencies of that.
That's
Also,
what I wanted to make sure that we were
yes,
not losing that piece in the mix. And so then all of a sudden somebody's out of compliance when we haven't
yes,
had the policy in place to make sure we're notifying them.
yes.
Okay.
And I will say that FTA, when they get changes to Title VI, inherit them from, you know, the federal government as administrators, it takes them time to digest it. And so we actually get an annual certs and assurances that we have to do and actually have our legal counsel sign off on it to ensure that we're following any changes that have occurred within Title VI and a lot of other things. We have our providers also sign off every year before we contract with them on those certs and assurances. So that's just a part of the policy and how we implement it.
Okay, great. Other questions from anybody? Super. And, you know, I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, if you just look at it, they're required to have a Title VI plan. And then some of the things that the plan are supposed to have, it's right in the words. Specific policies and procedures, roles and responsibilities of the staff, the description and cadence of staff training, a limited English proficiency plan, a signed board resolution that adopts the written policies, and they have to sign an annual certification and assurance. They're required to submit an annual report every year. And then I believe an on-site visit from us at least once every 2 years.
Yes.
So, and so it seems to me to be pretty straightforward and simple to approve. You know, if I have any like kind of in the back of my head, any concerns since laws and therefore implementing policies can kind of change mid-contract, as you mentioned. You never know if they do something in that process that becomes onerous and becomes expensive, and we find ourselves mid-contract in a place that requires a contract renegotiation and a requirement to place more funds against it. And hopefully they're sensitive to that, but to be fair, I don't think the federal government is always sensitive to those kinds of things.
They
So,
actually, whenever there is a change, they do have a period to be able to implement. And it's usually very reasonable of a period of implementation. I will say that, you know, we learned about these changes that we needed to make back in January of 2021. And essentially, you know, FTA, our Title VI officer, said, I know this takes time to incorporate into your program and to get approval amongst your board members and communicate to sub-recipients. So this was the timeline that was given to us, which is essentially a year, almost 2 years of providing services. So like I mentioned before, whenever there's a change with FTA in this type of topic in particular, there is a pretty significant period of implementation, or time given for implementation. So that is one thing that is nice.
okay, great.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. And I presume that our sub-recipients, they all know about it. You've been chatting with them for a while.
Yes,
and
they
haven't given you any specific form of pushback, right?
no, they
Okay.
were all, you know, knew that this was coming. They actually submitted their initial 1-year reports to me back in the spring. So we've been doing this already. It's just now it's on paper and hopefully adopted into our plan moving forward.
Great. All right. Yes.
It would be
Andy.
appropriate, Mr. Chair, to see if there is any public comment, because one of our awesome service providers is in the audience, not to put her on the spot, but if she's good, she can just shake her head no. No, but
Not to put her on the spot, but you're putting her on the spot. All right. Is there any public comment on this topic? I don't know. I think I'm hearing none.
This
So-
is Jason with Silver Key.
Yes. Oh, please go ahead.
And I was
Jason.
just going to say that we have received a level of support, not only from Laura, but from other trade groups that both Envita and Silver Key are involved with. So we feel very confident that we've got this part covered to keep us compliant. And I just appreciate all the support along the way with this transition of all the different things that have gone with 5310 and this and the way we work with the folks from the PPACG staff. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for those comments. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes, Council Member Avila.
Thank you, Chair. So this is relatively new for us to hear about 5310 because before a PPACG took it on, it was through Mountain Metro. And I don't know exactly how that worked before. That's why I was hoping Gail would speak to kind of give the little history, because I think the specialized transit organizations have been very familiar with this for a long time, but now it's under our umbrella. And I think it's really good because now we get to hear the ins and outs of how this works.
Great. Thank you. Those are great comments. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Gail Sturdivant. Could I respond to Councilor Avila's question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, and I apologize, Council. I believe I may have missed part of it, but I would let you know that the city does have our Title VI plans in place, both for Federal Transit Administration funds and other federal funding sources that are available. So we have been in compliance. I think this was probably more new for some of the newer service providers, as have been indicated.
Great. Thank you for that information. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was my point, that we've been working with this as the city under Mountain Metro. It's familiar, but so thanks, Gail.
Great. Super. All right. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Mayor, go ahead.
So do we have a plan if new service providers come on, that you will work with them on getting this into the right process and how we're going to do it? Because follow-up is so important. So many times we bring programs in And when we start them, everybody's gung ho, but to keep them going with new providers coming in and make sure it's done correctly. I just want to make sure we have all those key points in place.
Well, this is point A. I mean, Title VI is one of the most important, it is kind of the most important thing for FTA and pretty much all federal funding programs. So before we would bring a new subrecipient on board, they would have to have a Title VI plan in place, and we would work with them in order to develop that. That's exactly what we did when we started this with our current subrecipients. And so, you know, it is one of those things that, as I have been able to kind of free myself up a little bit from this initial transition of the administrative side of it, being able to work with subrecipients on things like this moving forward. But yes, we could not actually bring somebody on board until they had a Title VI plan adopted by their organization. So.
Okay, great. Other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for 6A.
I will move that we accept or take on the appended, whatever, however you say that. Yes.
I think that's a motion to approve the supplement, the Title VI supplement.
And I second it.
All right, that is
That
moved
was
and seconded.
Nancy Hingham moving. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, any last opportunity for comments or questions? And seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none, let us now move on to 6B, the fiscal year 23. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The fiscal year 23-27 tip amendment number 2.
And Danelle Miller is making her way up here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. This tip amendment covers, I believe, 13 changes to the FY2327 tip. The first of these changes is a change to the project description and extents for an existing project within the tip. It is a Woodland Park sponsored project for State Highway 67. And the reason for this was that there was an existing CDOT project that is also taking place in that area, and they wanted to ensure that those two projects did not overlap. So that project now runs from Valley View Drive to West Level Gulch Road. The second change that was requested is to add a project for CDOT. This is a State Highway 111 Nelson Boulevard to I-25 improvement project. At this time, it's $350,000 for a design. And this is for surface treatment. I believe there's also some guardrail work and some safety improvements potentially involved in that work. And then there are also 11 changes to the tip as a result of multimodal transportation and mitigation options fund money allocations that were made. We held a call for projects earlier this year. There was a TAC workshop in which we selected these projects. We had 11 projects that were submitted for consideration, and we were able to fund all 11 of these projects. They were included, if you scroll down in your packet, they are listed on page 35. And there are several different sponsors. There's Silver Key, Invita, Lewis Palmer School District, El Paso County, Monument. There's 3 projects that are sponsored by the PPRTA. Colorado Springs will actually be the project manager for those projects. And there's one project that is being sponsored by MMT. And I'd be happy to walk through those projects now. If you have any questions on particular projects, I believe there are folks from most of those jurisdictions on the phone available to answer questions as well.
Great. Are there any questions on this topic? And I think that probably the best way to do that is, just as you mentioned, to go to page 35, because that's the, one-line synopsis of every project and kind of get you started into checking out what they all are.
I do have a question.
Yes, please.
It's on page 38 and 39 on the Fort Carson shuttle operations. Does Mountain Metro requesting those funds have a signed written contract from Fort Carson?
Mr. Battuli, would you like to speak to that?
Good morning, Brian Fatuli, Transit Planning Supervisor with Mountain Metro Transit. No, we do not have a signed intergovernmental support agreement, but I can give you a brief history of our involvement with them if you would like.
I'm familiar with your involvement.
Okay.
And then I have it. So I have a second question on page 38. Looking at it, it says they're requesting $1.3 million through the ARPA money. And then it says they've been assigned $1.3 million from federal funds. It was my impression at that meeting that we voted to not certify those funds to an agency. Is that correct, Andy?
My recollection, and may need some help from John, is that the money was approved in the CDOT 10-year transit list
Correct.
without a sponsor specifically being named at that
Right.
point.
So this page makes it look like those funds have been assigned to this project.
Well, actually, this tip form that is in your packet, this was a result of the MMOF funds being assigned. And then that's for 50% of the funds. And then the other 50% would come from a reallocation of DoD funds that Fort Carson uses to fund their services currently. And then going forward after that first year, if MMT is the provider, we would provide that 50% match going forward. So,
Right.
so that's a little bit different than the 10-year pipeline of
Okay,
projects
Thank you for
item.
the clarification on that,
Sure.
because I was trying to have two different documents and remember what was done a couple of meetings ago. I'm just going to express my concerns that this is a huge amount of money to be assigned to something that there isn't any provider, right? Any provider has been selected for that project. So
That is correct.
I think my vote tended on that one item will be reflective of that. I'm supporting of all the other projects on this tip amendment, but not that particular line item.
Okay, I appreciate that. Does that mean that you may have a particular suggestion for the motion?
Well, I didn't know we were there yet.
We're not, but
Okay.
I guess I'm just asking that question.
Well, I mean, the money needs to be allocated.
Okay,
I'm assuming the money needs to be allocated today. Is that correct? And I don't know of another recipient for that particular pot of money that could potentially use it. So
And again, for the record, John Leosatos, Transportation Director, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So what we did a while back, and again, we've got folks from CDOT, Wendy Pettit and Jeff Guthrie on the phone. So guys, feel free to jump in and make a clarification if I get this wrong. What we did a while back was the 10-year transit plan, and that was specific to the CDOT process. This is a separate process by which when we received MMOF funds, there was a lot of different things eligible under this umbrella. So MMT submitted the application and it went through the process, and that's why it's part of this recommendation. So they are sort of separate. It's not presupposing or moving forward with any of the CDOT 10-year plan that was marked to be determined. This is a separate effort that was undertaken by MMT through the MMOF process. My understanding, and again, Wendy or Jeff jump on, MMOF is a little different, and I don't think we have those same sort of time constraints. If the board decided that they were not comfortable with any part of this, not necessarily this, the option is to send it back and have us look at it, or just say no and we put the money back in the pot and then we redistribute it. I know of a couple of jurisdictions that are already looking forward to MMOF money. And so we would go from there. But Wendy, is there any time restriction for the MMF? It's ARPA, and again, I'm hoping someone from CDOT comes on, but I believe it is federal ARPA dollars.
It is, you're right.
That was given to the state of Colorado, and the state of Colorado under SB 260 took part of that and repainted it and said, oh, well, now this is MMOF dollars. So, it's the old sort of thing where you buy a car and you have to sort of rub the paint a little bit to see if it used to be a cap. But I believe the origination funds are ARPA, but the city had given them to us as the MMOF allocation. Is that correct, Wendy?
That's correct. So we had a allocation that was part federal and part state. And the federal funds were allocated to entities and recipients through the process that John just spoke of, to folks that are experienced and able to spend them within the time frame. The ARPA funds, the federal funds, have a deadline to be programmed and spent. So they have about 2 years to be programmed to get to the point of construction, and then they have 2 years from the point of obligation to be spent, roughly. So this project would fall into that category because it's federal funding. So at any time, you're always able to take something off of the agenda, table it. You can table the whole agenda. You can table just this item. The choice is yours, as always.
Bless you. But yeah, so we've got, 2 years. So I want to make sure we were clear. This was not if you don't do this today, everything's going away. But that being said, for those items that are raring and ready to go, it would sure be nice if they were able to move forward. Mr. Chair.
Yes, please, go ahead. Thank you.
Well, I guess my question is, I'm assuming there's a need for a shuttle in Fort Carson.
There is a shuttle. They're just changing how it's being run.
Okay, so I guess Mayor Thompson, I'm not quite sure I understand your concern.
Fort Carson has not chosen a provider for it, and there are 2 people bidding for the contract. And Fountain is bidding and Mountain Metro is bidding for it, which is fine. It's a need on Fort Carson. It's going to be filled by someone, right? And it's Fort Carson's choice who does it, right? It's a lot of money to put towards something like that when they don't have a written contract. I have no problem with somebody if they have a written contract for it, right? And then I just wonder if they do get it, great, fantastic, congratulations, right? But if they don't, do we come back and then the money gets reallocated?
Sorry. Yes, if you were to approve the amendment today as is, then moving forward, and there are lots of projects that as we move forward, we find out either A, we need to change the scope, or B, we need to ask for more money, or sometimes we come back and realize after we've done some preliminary engineering, this project ain't gonna fly, and especially with the amount of money we've set aside, it's not gonna happen. So we do have instances where jurisdictions come back and say they either need more money, or we have jurisdictions come back and say, we're gonna have to cancel this project, please redo the money. So if you were to adopt the amendment today as is, that money will sit there as we move forward with the process. As Fort Carson selects Fountain, then MMT no longer has a project. They would come and say, hey, PPACG, we no longer need these funds. They would return them. Donnell would send out an email saying, hey, jurisdictions, these funds have been returned. You all have equal access to it. Here's the deadline. And the jurisdictions would then apply for those funds. And again, depending on how many projects we have out there that are already underway, we might say only existing projects that have a shortfall should apply. Or we could say, we're opening this up to new projects. But we try to make sure that we get with the TAC members, and we sort of monitor what that cash flow is, so that we don't have a whole bunch of projects sitting out there that aren't getting done. So we want to make sure that we do that, and that's usually our priority. But that would be the process moving forward, unless someone thinks I've got that wrong. We'll take the silence as me being correct.
Yeah, I just find the whole thing of it's federal dollars, it's ARPA dollars, but it's MMOF dollars, but we have it listed on the paper as ARPA dollar. I find that very confusing. So if there's a way before we do one of these again, maybe we can clarify what's going on with the funding source a little bit further, because it does inhibit who can apply for projects,
I would assume that
potentially.
was made clear through the TAC process. I'm looking at John.
And it may,
Danielle.
they're the
Yeah.
professionals at
And-
this.
And I think the way they broke it out on this spreadsheet, that helps me, but yes, it is a little bit confusing. I'm assuming you went through a stack and TC process at the state level to allocate their federal portion that went to the state of Colorado of ARPA into this MMOF process. But I'm not
Yeah.
sure what else we could do to clarify that.
And again, so under SB 260, there's MMOF that's collected under the enterprise. So as we move forward and over the next 10 years, the federal dollars that are MMOF will go down and the state dollars will go up. But for right now, the original tranche, never used the word tranche till I got to Colorado. That original tranche of funds is this sort of renamed, repainted ARPA dollars. But it's important that we had, like you say, the professional discussion at that TAC level, because federal dollars don't count towards the Tabor cap, while state dollars do. So we will find that the Tabor challenged jurisdictions will get to participate less and less in the MMOF unless we figure out something as the state amount of MMOF goes up and the federal amount goes down. So this is sort of that initial sort of opportunity for our Tabor challenged folks to take advantage while MMOF is renamed or repainted ARPA dollars, but that will not always be the case. And I think I've probably just confused this even more. I probably should have just been quiet, but.
No, but an entity
Okay.
could choose to, the entity could choose to run a ballot measure, I'm gonna assume, to detabor any of those particular funds that came to their community.
I'll mention that that is always possible in theory. But the county tried to get our Tabor reset and that did not pass.
But you're not resetting all of it. You would just be running a ballot measure to keep those particular funds. We detabored our grants our city received years ago, so that they're, anyways, that's
Well,
a whole, that's just a
again, I think
possibility.
everything's
Okay.
always possible in
Right.
theory, but you know, that has to rely on the sentiments of the
Right.
voters.
I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chair, if I could just have a brief moment to kind of describe what the need is at Fort Carson and how we were approached.
Okay, great. And I'm actually interested in that. I do have one question before we go there, and then I want you to do that. So if we were to approve this as written today, does it have any other impacts about allowing the process about what Fort Carson would choose? In other words, does it somehow influence them or somehow, you know, change kind of some form of a fair process for them to make a decision? Because I think a little of this is about allowing that to continue unimpeded without outside influence so that they get to their best choice.
Well, I think everybody who is ever in a business bidding contract puts together their best process and how it works best for them as a community, and where the money come from is just part of the contract process, right? So I don't
Yep.
want to say fair, not fair. It just is what it is.
Okay, thank you.
In our communications with Fort Carson, they are aware that we applied for these funds and that this would be used for this service if we were to provide it.
Does anyone have their mics on?
I do. Yeah. Brian, you need to lean closer.
Yes. it's on. So should I go ahead and?
Yes,
okay.
please
All
go
right.
ahead.
Thank you. So it was about a year ago, Mr. Brad Hallam and Marcus Brister approached us to look at a way to provide a better service on Fort Carson. Currently, they have a contractor that provides, from what they told us, basically bed to desk service. Basically to take soldiers from their dorms to their place of work. Doesn't really suit their needs as well. Doesn't give them a connection into the community. It's all entirely on post. So they were looking for some type of better service. We told them at this time, June of 2021, that there potentially could be the MMOF legislation coming out and there could be funding available for something like this. We continue to discuss with them. We then did some field work with Mr. Brad Hallam in May to kind of shadow the on-post shuttles to see how they're operating. Kind of came up with a preliminary service plan where we would provide 4 on-post shuttles with 5 vehicles, and then one service that goes from the Evans Army Hospital, out Gate 5, up Highway 15 to Pikes Peak Community College's Centennial Campus, where we have a transfer center. So that would be kind of the connection from the post to the community. There they could get on 4 or 5 other MMT routes and go throughout the community. They both mentioned soldiers coming from other places without vehicles, feelings of isolation, just no connection to the community, or relying on other friends or soldiers for rides. So we've been working with them. We've been in recent contact with Chris DeGarry, who's the director of the Plans, Analysis, and Integration Office. So that's who we're working with for moving forward. And there's been a new garrison change of command, so there's a new commander there. But what Chris said is that once they just got through the change of command, they're going to start requesting service and operating plans from both entities. And basically the intergovernmental support agreements they have to be a benefit for both entities who enter into one. They either have to be an improvement in service, quality of service, or cost savings for both entities. So when we met with them in June, that's when we found out that they're also pursuing Fountain for the same type of service. So we're glad to work with them, and we'll both submit our service and operating plans and then see how it goes forward. And I don't think it's a bad thing to approve this as is. And as John stated, if we are not the operator and we're not going to use MMOF funds, then those funds will go back into the pot to be reallocated. But we were the only one who did apply for those funds, thinking that they could be a perfect fit for on-post shuttle services.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any,
Contact negotiations continue, and we've been at the table for a very long time with this, and just Fort Carson moves at their timetable. So
Okay.
hopefully this will be settled soon, but we'll see.
okay, very good.
So, but I think my vote will still reflect.
All right, thank you. Yes, Mayor Wilson?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Mayor Thompson on this, that this kind of seems like putting the cart before the horse. There are plenty of projects that are already in the working phase or in some fashion getting rolling already that these funds could go towards, that instead we're kind of sitting on these funds in case the contract gets approved. And then if not, we're going to go back and tell other projects, oh yeah, here's an opportunity for the money you were looking for before. So just want to express that I agree with Ms. Thompson on that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Mayor Pro Tem Jardine. I'm kind of confused. I thought when you first came up, presented this, you had 3 items. Then talking about the CDOT project overlap. But then all of a sudden we have how many more projects like this in the packet?
There's 11 projects that were awarded MMOF funding. And all, there were only 11 applications received, so all 11 projects did end up being recommended for funding.
So that means all 11 are changing?
No, these are primarily new projects. The only existing project on the MMOF list is the Jackson Creek Parkway Construction Project, which is sponsored by Monument. So there are 11 MMOF projects receiving funding, and then the 2 additional projects that you mentioned earlier, the CDOT project and the State Highway 67 project.
With the CDOT and the project up in Woodland Park, correct?
Yes, sir.
Isn't that part of PPRTA?
These are not PPRTA funds, so they are not, they're different funding streams.
Okay, so, okay, thank you.
But to Mayor Wilson, to clarify though, how were these funds were decided based on amount asked for, correct?
MMOF, yes.
So there are some entities, and I'll use Monument as an example, that asked for more, but instead we're going to hold money for a project that may get a contract.
We actually awarded Monument the full amount that was on the final application.
Okay.
After some discussions with CDOT and the limitations of the MMOF funding, this was the 3.8 million was the number that came back on the final application from the estimate. MMOF is limited in what you can spend it on to things like pedestrian trails, bikeways, that kind of thing. So you can't use it for any sort of capacity or a roadway project.
Okay.
So you can only use it for portions of projects.
Thank you for clarifying.
Absolutely.
Okay, yes, Mayor, go ahead.
On the summary page, page 35, Silver Key requested 1.959 roughly, and they were awarded 1.458. So to Mayor Wilson's point, there is a project here that requested more money and has a project ready and ready to go.
They were actually awarded their full amount. It's just broken down. So they were
Oh,
awarded
thank you.
1.4
Thank
of
you for that
the federal
correction.
funds and
Okay, thank you.
500,000 of the state. And we broke those out on this partially because they do have different timelines for these jurisdictions to actually complete these projects. So that's part of why we have them delineated as either the federal or the state monies.
So with all of that in mind, I mean, we got a little bit of a conversation going on here about if there's other projects that possibly could be funded, but did I understand kind of early on in this conversation that you were able to actually award or apply funds in this proposal to every applicant?
Yes, sir.
And maybe in every case, you actually, for what was eligible to use these funds, you were able to apply the full funding.
Yes, sir. We were actually short about 104,000, and CDOT was able to allocate some TAP money, some transportation alternatives program money to fill that small hole.
To get to 100% of
Correct.
whatever was eligible on all the applications that were received.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Avila, I think you had your hand raised.
I did. Thank you, Chair. So during our work session, we talked about this, and it wasn't like either or. It could be both, right? Fountain and MMT. But I just wanted to stress that, I grew up here, and in the 60s, 70s, 80s, that there was transit, to Fort Carson. And it was really great because the soldiers could come off, enjoy downtown, and it started to stop before even 9/11. But I can see this getting back to it. We need a robust transit system. And here in the city of Colorado Springs, we've really been working on that with MMT, now going to the airport, going to the hospitals. And I think this is a really great way to support our active duty members who are on base serving our country, being able to come in and out of base, not only getting around there on base, but also to enjoy the amenities of the city, not feeling so isolated. As a person that has a disability and has relied on public transportation, it could be very isolating not to have that public transportation piece of it. And so, I've always been a transit person, coming in 2011 when buses were only 5 days a week and stopped at 5:30 p.m. That was horrible. And especially when that's all you have, people couldn't go to church on Sundays. And now to have this opportunity and, preparedness meets opportunity. And the bottom line is that MMT is completely prepared for this and is ready to receive those dollars, but that doesn't exclude, like if they don't get it, Fountain from being able to do it. So I strongly support this funding.
Thank you. And Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, we'd just like to clarify, whoever gets the contract, that is part of that the service will go out to Pikes Peak Community College for them to. So it's not an and or, it's not, so that is part of the project. So.
Great. And I think a part of this, we're relying on Fort Carson to make a decision. Is that correct? Yeah.
We all start looking at each other. Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, members of the board, yes, ultimately it is up to Fort Carson to move forward. And again, as a taxpayer, I'm happy that they're going through a deliberative process to make sure that they get the best deal. So however, whatever their time frame is their time frame, and we completely support that. But at this point, we've got this tip amendment, so you can either do it all, do none of it, or ask to hold
Right.
item or items that are contentious.
Well, what I wanted to do was get an understanding, and maybe we don't have a good understanding, but what is the understanding of the Fort Carson timeline? Like is,
They're on Fort Carson's timeline and we'll get it
Okay.
done when it gets done.
so I think maybe the other way to express what the mayor just mentioned is we don't know. Okay, because I mean, to be fair to this, right? If we go forward and reserve this money for this process, at some point, we got to have Fort Carson fish or cut bait. I mean, we can't let it sit forever. It has its own expiration point for starters, right? And then if they decide to use the funds, we would need to. We can't wait a year. So I don't know what the time frame is, but I think there's something in there about a time frame that's going to be important about what happens here. And just a moment, yes, go ahead, council member.
Well, I guess my question is just simply, whoever wins it would get these funds, is my guess, although it sounds like Fountain would need to apply for them.
So MMOF, I don't believe we are eligible for. Is that correct? Okay, I'm mixing it up with something else.
Okay,
then.
so, but
Okay.
I guess my point is, clearly, Mountain Metro would not get these funds if not awarded by Fort Carson. Where would the funds sit? If this is passed, where would the funds sit if it wasn't passed? If we vote on this as a whole, the way it is outlined, where would the funds sit while Mountain Metro is waiting for the award and Fountain's waiting for the award? And if we choose to take this out of this appropriation, where would the funds sit until the award is made?
So
Please go ahead.
Sharon,
You have an answer?
Sharon, this is Wendy at CDOT. So what would happen is this: if you award it, they'll sit in the pool, the CDOT A pool, which is the pool that holds this money. And until we have a decision made on whether or not Mountain Metro gets that agreement with Fort Carson. If they do not get that agreement, since this is the way the funds were applied for, Mountain Metro would have to return them. They go back to the pool and they go back into a competitive process to be awarded back out in some way, shape, or form. Whether it goes to Fountain, if that's the decision that the PPACG MPO makes, is up to them, or if it goes to another project, that's up to them as well. But that's what would happen at this point. If you choose not to award them to Mountain Metro, then they'll sit in the pool and they'll have to be put out for a competitive process.
So that's the key. Mountain Metro would have to administratively go through the process again to apply for them.
Correct. If you decide not to include them in this amendment moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
But what was the timeline we had on these funds?
2 years.
2 years, so
2 years to obligate and then another 2 years to use. Is that correct?
Correct.
Federal requirements, yes.
So, Mayor, I might understand where you might want to go with that comment, which is, do we want? Let me see if I'm thinking the way you're thinking. Do we want to? Let's say if we were to go forward and approve this, would we want to then maybe also kind of set a date beyond which we now need to make a different decision because we don't want to lose the dollars? Right. And we would need time to be able to allocate it to somewhere else. Is that along your thinking?
Right. I don't want to see it sit there, a year expire before a decision's made, and then have to come back and go through the whole process. And then we have a shortened amount of time to reallocate those funds.
Okay, I think that's a very reasonable comment and question. Yes, council member.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, perhaps an idea is to, if we approve this list as it is today, ask Mr. Vituli to go to Fort Carson, coordinate with them and ask them, hey, can you give me a date by when you're going to make a decision? I need that information.
Yes, and I can kind of give a brief explanation of timeline. When we met with them in June, they would love to get something operating as soon as they could, and they thought that June or spring of 2023 could be doable. I don't know what it takes to execute a intergovernmental service or support agreement, but they seem to think that that was doable. We do have the vehicles on hand, so we probably could start it up as early as spring of 23.
I appreciate that. And, my sense of it is I think we've got maybe a slightly different approach that we need to take about timeline. And that would be asking our own staff, at what point would we start placing this money at risk? Because we would need some time scope to get it allocated somewhere else. So what would that date be? And I don't know if that's necessarily something we have to have today, but I think maybe if this is something the board feels strongly about, we could maybe ask the PPACG staff to provide that date at the next meeting, give you some time to figure it out. And then that might be part of the agreement, which is, we vote for this, we place it in escrow in the right account or whatever, but after a certain date, if we don't have that money on a path to obligation, then we would need to use it for a different purpose because we don't want to lose the dollars.
Sure. I mean, 6 months from now is February. That seems a little too long, a little too late. So maybe if we, and we'll talk about this internally, but maybe by the end of this year, in the next 4 months, if we can finally get a decision as far as which direction the service might go, perhaps that would give us enough time then. If we had to reallocate and go through another call for projects, we could work that through our timeline in early 2023 so we don't lose the dollars. But let's put our heads together and figure out what the right milestones might be.
And I think it might be appropriate to kind of think of it in those terms, because if we think about it the wrong way, it might start to look like we're pressuring Carson to use these funds. And I think what we want to do is let them decide what they want. And then it goes with whoever. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, Mayor?
I understand that and I agree with what you're saying because they are on their timeline and they do have a service that is currently operating. So it's not like they don't have one. It just does not come outside the base and connect. I believe I could be wrong on that, but that is part of the contract. But I think the motion, I would like to see in whatever we do, the motion reflect some sort of timeline just internally for us. It doesn't mean we have to pressure Fort Carson, but maybe we just review it in 4 months to see where either one of the parties are on the process, and then we can amend the motion to extend that timeline or not as needed.
Okay, I think if I'm hearing you correctly, Mayor, not necessarily asking the staff for some future date where we have to decide one way or another, but maybe readdress this particular item in a meeting, in a PPACG meeting 4 months from now. And then basically reconsider that line item at that point. Is that what you're mentioning? Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to clarify. So we're motioning to approve the tip amendment with the stipulation of a timeline or a future review of that particular the MMT item.
Yes, that seems to be, from my perspective, that seems to be where we're going.
Just wanted to be clear on how we were doing it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? This, by the way, is a great discussion because this is real, making sausage, trying to figure out what's appropriate that we need to do so we can protect the dollars and also deliver as many services as possible. So I appreciate the conversation.
And Mr. Chair, I have two other questions.
Yes,
They should be
please.
quick probably for Mr. Vituli, but whoever wants to answer them. Fort Carson wants a bus to go through a gate though. the security side of that, they're going to handle? I mean, what if a civilian gets on the bus at Pikes Peak and then tries to ride in there to the hospital?
Right, yeah, that's a great question. We did bring that up because that has been an issue before when we had a service going on post. They assured us that they could work that out. That's why we're using Gate 5. It's not so heavily used, and they would provide whatever is necessary to ensure that security is met.
Okay. And then on a separate, this is a separate item here. It's the one right above the Fort Carson shuttle, the 2 battery electric buses. Did you see the news article? And you just may not have any information about this, but back east, I don't remember if it's Philadelphia, Baltimore, electric bus caught on fire, burned to the ground. Is that get factored into our transportation department with electric buses? Do you have any knowledge about that? Can you reassure me we're not going to buy 2 and they're going to burn to the ground?
Yeah, well, that's our intent, is not to buy things that blow up.
I'm sure it's the intent, but have we done any research on why that happened, or do you have any information other than just a nice reassurance that won't happen to us?
Well, yeah, we work with our vendors, and the vehicles do have suppression systems on there to keep something like that from happening. I don't know what the details were of the one that caught on fire, but
was that from the vendor which we're purchasing from, same manufacturer?
Yes, yeah, and all vendors provide suppression systems on their vehicles. So I don't know if this was an older vehicle that burned. I just don't know the details.
But it's from the same company we're receiving them from?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
I don't know. The one that burned, I don't know the details. I just heard that there was a battery electric bus that caught on fire.
If I want that information, who do I get it from? Like, who can research that for me?
What are you asking for exactly? What type of systems do we have to prevent that?
Nope.
Or
if that bus is the same kind that we are purchasing for these 2, and what we know about that incident and what lessons have been learned, was it charging when it burned? I don't think it was. I think it was on the road. What are we doing different, or is that what caused it? As we're purchasing them, it might be prudent to know.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we can do a little research into that. I'm sure there's media stories out there that could give us some answers, but I don't know the details.
You're right, but what I'm asking is
No,
and I'm just trying to be serious about this, is not just for us to go look at, what's online and I see it burn, but for our transportation department to maybe contact ours or do real research and tell us, hey, this is why this won't happen again. This is what we've learned.
I'd say, Mr. Donaldson, so to your question, maybe this is a reasonable ask from the board to the staff to do some research and then kind of report out the findings at the next board meeting. And that gives you the time to do that research and think about it, because I have no idea why that bus had its challenge. I don't know if it was manufactured incorrectly, if they had faulty batteries on it, or if there's actually maybe something inherently problematic with the design, which then would come back to Mr. Donaldson's comment. If there's something problematic with the design, we might want to know that so that we don't find ourselves in the same situation, right? But since we have no idea right now, it's hard to really answer the question, but maybe we give the team a chance to do that research and come back to us and give us that reassurance that, whatever it is, that isn't going to happen. That was an anomaly, or actually maybe there's really something here we need to worry about. So let me ask Mr. Donaldson if you find that approach on this question reasonable for you.
Absolutely reasonable. And that's why I was really asking, like, how do I get that information, or who is it who would provide that to us?
We'll find that information.
Yeah, there's a comment here.
And then it looks like Mr. Leosatos wanted to.
I'd also like to offer to take you for a ride on one of those anytime. Pretty sure that they won't catch on fire when we're riding,
but see, that's the kind of the flippant answer, which scares me, because I've driven an electric vehicle before, and yeah, it didn't catch fire, right? But when one burns to the ground in another city, perhaps we should be more interested in, well, is there, I believe there was a ship that caught on fire transporting electric vehicles and sank in the ocean too, coming across. there seems to be something going on with lithium batteries. But I don't know, and I don't have time to do the research. And I wouldn't be as qualified at it as some of you would be. So I would just ask for
We'll do that.
some research
We'll do
into
that
it.
report
Thank you.
back.
And I'll, my comments to it, I think it's reasonable to ask the question. We do have a comment here from a CDOT person, and sorry, my eyes are not good enough to read the name, but it says that there's been a very low number of electric bus fires and so forth. Having said that, though, I'm a pilot, I fly an airplane, and so if somebody else with the same manufacturer of airplane that I have has a landing gear problem, then you have the National Transportation Safety Board do an investigation to see if that was just simply an anomaly, some kind of maybe failed maintenance or something that caused it. But if they find something that's inherent in the design, then they provide that information to all the other owners of that airplane, because now you have kind of a safety issue about the design. And that's really important. So I kind of see this line of reasoning along that same approach. And I just think it's fair and reasonable. To be fair, the likelihood of finding something wrong with the design is probably really, really low. But we've got the question. Let's go do the research and get an answer. Yes, Mayor?
Mr. Chair, can we go back up one? Ms. Case had some comments. We can read them aloud for in the record and for Councilmember. If you could go up like one.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I'm asking him to read the comments that are in the chat out loud.
okay, very good. So
Kelly Case, start with there.
Kelly Case, would you like, I can read them or would you like?
No, I just,
Okay.
that's where I was asking to start.
Thank you. So Kelly Case, Woodland Park, there will never be a guarantee that this won't happen again. There are never any guarantees. And that is true. But I can tell you, like in the aviation world, you do what you can and you try to be reasonable about it. So you can still do the research. And then we have Chief Guthrie from CDOT. My apologies if I mispronounce your name. For your information, there have only been 18 fires involving electric buses worldwide since 2010. And then there's a link underneath that. And then for Kelly Case, we can never say that won't happen, not to be argumentative. Thank you. And then GF Guthrie, the NTSB is investigating the bus fire currently. Okay, that's good. So there'll be a finding that will come from that. And then Kelly Case, agree, Mr. Chair. And I think maybe that's all of the comments that's online that's pertinent to this topic. Is that correct? Okay, great. So you're welcome. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor Dixon, Green Mountain Falls. Wouldn't it be prudent to maybe make sure we have an established procedure in case there is a bus fire and you have passengers on board?
I think that would be prudent. It may be that those manufacturers already have that procedure. I just don't know the answer to that. I can tell you, just using my analogy, which I know very well about airplanes, there's a ton of procedures for safety on airplanes.
Well, you're talking to someone who's actually grounded airplanes before, so.
See, there you go. Yeah.
And the FAA has actually done a lot of research in the lithium ion batteries too. And it's actually, we have documentation on it. Or they had documentation on it.
And I appreciate the comments about lithium ion batteries, but like, I don't even know what kind of batteries this bus had. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, we're happy to reach out to MMT and CDOT and pull together what we can over this incident and see what other guidelines are out there.
Okay. I think we've got a pathway forward to do some research and get a report out next meeting. And let's leave that topic there. Oh, we have another comment. Let's see. From GF Guthrie, an estimated 212,500 vehicle fires caused 560 civilian deaths, 1,500 civilian injuries, and 1.9 billion in direct property damage in the US during 2018. The source, National Fire Protection Association, March 2020. Okay, thank you. So that topic is concluded. Let's be hopeful for that. And we'll have some more information next time. Let's get back to the main topic at hand, which is this list. And I think we have kind of the baseline of a recommended motion, which includes something to the effect of 4 months from now or thereabouts, we will do another review of this and see if there's been progress about how to use the dollars, either in this process, or do we need to ask for it to be reallocated for some other worthy purpose, because we don't want to find ourselves in a place of failing to use the money. And I don't know if 4 months is the right length. Maybe we can go a little past that, but this is kind of a conversation about let's just pick a future date of 4 months. We know we're safe there, and we'll readdress it at that point on this particular line. So with that in mind, would anybody like, oh, I'm sorry, does someone have, please go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think 4 months feels right. I mean, if there's been no movement, then maybe that's a little bit of a caution that we need to maybe take some additional steps or something else. So yeah, a check-in in
Can we just
December.
say
Yeah.
or the early
Mhm.
January? We have a meeting.
January meeting, maybe?
Beginning of January.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think we'll settle on the January meeting for that review. And with that in mind and those comments, is anybody willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Mayor Wilson, motion to approve Amendment 2 to the FY 2023 through 2027 Transportation Improvement Program, with the stipulation we have an update on the Fort Carson project in January.
Okay. Very good.
Yolanda, second.
That's been moved and seconded. Thank you very much. Now we have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments or questions from anybody here present or online? All right, hearing none. Let's go ahead and, I'm sorry? Are we good? Oh, okay. Let's go ahead and proceed to a vote. All those in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you very much. I know it took us a little while to get through that, but that was a great conversation, and there's a stipulation on there, and I think that stipulation is appropriate, so appreciate the board's interest in that. Let's move on to item 6C, the Transportation Electrification Plan.
And Dolly or Jess, can you bring up the PowerPoint presentation? While they're bringing that up, good morning again, Danelle Miller, Senior Transportation Planner here at PPACG. There we go.
Good morning.
So what I have for you today, in addition to the information in your packet, we put together a little presentation to walk through some of the highlights of this this item. And I wanted to start off the discussion today just by noting that we had some internal discussions and heard some comments during the board agenda meeting on Friday. We've decided to change the name of this document from Transportation Electrification Plan to Transportation Electrification Study, because the document does not really include instructions or specific projects. It does not prescribe implementation steps. We really felt that the board was correct, that the plan was not the right wording there, and that study really fits the content and the intent of the document better. We are, of course, open to additional changes as needed. So this document was created by PPACG staff internally. This was largely in response to some discussions that have been going on in the region, and also largely in preparation for anticipated funding opportunities related to electrical vehicle charging stations. And the goal of this study was really to provide background information and support for any local jurisdictions or other entities that may be considering EV related projects in our region. the goal is to, or the content is really intended to make it easier for those entities to write their grant packages and make smart decisions about charging locations, that kind of thing. And also having a regional electrification document is a common criteria for some of those grant applications. So we felt it was a good thing for us to do as support to our local jurisdictions. If you can move to the next slide, please. The document begins with an introductory section. It provides a quick overview of federal and state guidance related to electric vehicles and electrical vehicle charging infrastructure. It also has a quick overview of different types of EVs and different types of charging stations. You'll notice a map on this particular slide. This is the federally designated EV corridors in our region. And at this time, if you've heard of NEVI funding, the state actually just put together its NEVI plan, which is going up to the
yes, just a moment, Councilmember Avila. I think you might have a question here.
I do. I'm just wondering if you could be a little more descriptive.
Yes.
Like when you're saying you see, no, I don't. So it's just be a little more descriptive because I have no idea where you're.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
So the map of the federally designated EV corridors, the only one in our particular MPO or COG region right at this time is I-25. We have heard discussion of potentially wanting to include some other roadways in the future. My understanding from CDOT is that there are annual nominations that take place. And so we may have the opportunity to nominate roadways in the future. In particular, US 24 is one that I've heard mentioned for future consideration. And this map is important because that NEVI formula funding is available at this time only to projects located along those corridors. So that's why it is included in this document. I'll also point out quickly that this study really had quite a limited scope. We did it internally, primarily pulling from existing data, existing plans or studies that have been done. These include CDOT plans, CDOT data. We did some stakeholder interviews with CDOT, Drive Clean Colorado, the Colorado Auto Dealers Association. We have socialized this with our TAC, and we held a workshop with TAC members. So we have put a bit of background information out there to discuss with folks moving forward. And that's why we kind of brought it to you today to introduce it to you and also try to open a public comment period. Next slide, please.
And yes, please go ahead, Councilmember Donaldson.
Could I just ask if we go back to that last slide, federally designated EV corridors, you know, and green means it's basically there's enough charging stations. Brown means it's getting there, but not quite. What else does that designation carry? Does that carry funding from the federal government? What does that mean federally?
It does not. It just means that that roadway is eligible for certain portions of funding.
And only those kind of roadways are eligible
Depending on the funding type.
with federal funding. Yeah.
Not all federal funding, but certain federal funding, yes.
And currently it's only I-25.
In our area. Yes.
Not I-70. But yeah, I-70, but it's out of the Pikes Peak area.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Just I-25.
Okay, great. Let's proceed.
Next slide, please. So the following section, we included some existing conditions within our region. That includes population growth and density, some transportation demographics. There is on this slide some graphics to just indicate the percentages for example, of vehicles per household. So the vast majority of households in our region do have a vehicle. Most have 2 vehicles or more. Commute length, for instance, it looks like roughly a third of folks are within the 15 to 30 minute commute length. Roughly a third are 30 to 60 minutes, and then shorter commutes. There was a very small percentage that did not have a commute. And this information is from 2018. So obviously that was pre-pandemic. Some of that will be changed in future data. And again, largely, I believe 70%, 71% drive alone. That's their primary commute mode to and from work. So we wanted to include some of these statistics because, again, we felt they were important to kind of provide some information to folks in the area who might be interested in charging projects in the region.
That's actually 77%, right? 77.
Yes,
77,
yes,
yeah.
I apologize.
not 7.
Yes.
And for Councilmember Avila, just so you know, there's about almost 30 charts total. And we're in the preliminary charts, the chart that's on the screen right now, it has a figure 7, which is transportation demographics from 2018.
Yes.
And it's showing a commute mode, 77% driver alone. What I find actually interesting on the chart is 10% are carpooling, 6% are working from home. But I think there's something that may be important. It might be, I see, I think you had this, the sources on the bottom. It's Colorado Energy Office.
Mhm.
I am going to guess that the 6% working from home being data from 2018 is no longer valid. I would bet it's a lot more. So just a question for all of us. It might be that this Colorado Energy Office has no information that's more current than 2018 and we're stuck with it. But gosh, I think maybe you can answer that question, but if there's a way to get more current information, I think it might be an interesting thing to get into this study over this chart, but I just don't know if it's available. So
We will certainly look.
Okay.
It was not available when we put this together, but we will certainly look and see if that is
Okay.
something we can update.
I'm gonna guess that 6% is 15% at least now, and maybe more. So just food for thought for everybody. Okay.
And Mr.
Go ahead.
No,
Yes,
excuse me,
please.
Mr. Chair, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, thank you. And what strikes me about these graphs, and I find this, I'm going to hang on to this chart here, is on city council, I asked a question about when we were having funding for, I don't remember exactly what it was, but we were discussing how many people drive a car to work, how many people take a bus, how many ride a bike. And I think I was told, I believe it was 30% that ride buses or ride a bicycle, and I threw the BS flag on that one. I said, there's no way it's that high. And on this, it has 0.74% public transportation, 0.43%, so less than barely 1% between public transportation and bikes, and then 3.5% walking. So this is 80% almost drive alone, another 10% carpool. That's 90% right there, and then 6% walk, or I mean, work from home. So this is very interesting to me. Thank you.
I would point out that this information is for the Council of Governments area. So it
Yeah.
includes Park County, Teller County, and El Paso County. So numbers may be very different for Colorado Springs just on its own.
Well, I think they're probably different. I don't know if they're very different, but thank you. Yeah, and very useful. It's not in the city. It's not a municipality. It's still counties. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can we move to the next slide, please? So we have a map here and it is quite small, but in the actual document, we do have this broken out by county. And this map is purely to show the existing station location, charging station locations compared with the population density. And again, that's an element that can go into some people's grant applications. And also all of this information that we have, this data that we have, should someone be interested in writing a grant, that's data that we can probably share with them so they can drill down and get to more specific information that's relevant to them.
I see Commissioner Elsner has his hand raised. Let's go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the idea that it would be a lot different in rural areas as far as Colorado Springs, and I can guarantee you that would be true. We don't have the ability to do much of the ride together or carpool when people are scattered the way they are up in the mountains. The other thing I wanted to note, when something similar to this was presented by CDOT and they had their transportation corridors identified, 285 was one of them, Highway 50 was one of them, and at the time, I believe it was a stack meeting, I complained quite a little bit about the fact that 24 was not one of them. So anything out of Colorado Springs, you can get to Woodland Park, but nothing beyond that is supported by CDOT or the federal money. And I personally think that was rather unfair to our region, because you've got a whole lot of people that drive from Colorado Springs west, and 24 is their option, and it kind of makes it rather difficult if they do have an electric vehicle that CDOT is trying to push. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the comments, Commissioner. Actually, maybe that's actually the point of having these documents for review, because it's maybe revealing some kinds of weaknesses. That an example could be, if we're going to be under pressure going forward to figure out how to reduce greenhouse gases, and then we don't have something in place for people in Colorado Springs where funds can be provided for electric charging stations, then the incentive or the interest in electric vehicles would be lower in Colorado Springs than in other places. Yet we're trying to convince people to change behaviors, but they don't have charging stations to get to. So Commissioner Elsner's point, I think, is very valid. And I'll make this other point that kind of is an illustration of the importance of this document, because we're starting to reveal some challenges that we're probably going to have to face going forward. So that's all good, I think. And I appreciate the comment from the Commissioner. Yes, go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, I actually was going to express the same concern of Highway 24 east and west, because get people out your way, and then what do they do? So I'm very concerned that it's only, I know we have to start somewhere, but I am concerned that it's only thinking up and down I-25 and not east and west in our beautiful state.
Thank
So,
you. Good comments.
Just to follow up on that, that sentiment has been brought up to CDOT and to Michael King in particular. And Mr. King will be here at our board in September, so he may be able to address some of those
Great.
comments and questions.
Outstanding. Yes, please.
Yeah,
Mayor.
regarding Town Callahan, as the mayor brought up, in Callahan, man, there's a lot of people are interested in this, but they can't do a round trip on how to charge a car.
Right.
Okay, so man, if we had a couple of stations, like we have a good gas station now, we could put some in, but we're also got some new projects coming up. Can we get grants for those to put charging stations in those new projects also, or what?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah, but when you're in the dark, you don't know how to go about doing it. So,
Exactly.
all right, thank you.
I appreciate that comment, and maybe that's a little something that we can do here in PPACG, is kind of help our members figure out how to go forward in applying for grants, and just get a little of that learning for everybody so that they can consider it.
Sure. A quick tangent is that we've talked about how the state's been helping us to hire a grant navigator, grant coordinator that could help with especially our small jurisdictions that don't have the capacity to write grants and to know what's out there. Hoping that we're going to have that position in place as a contractor sometime soon in the next couple of months. So, and this is actually one of those pots that I think our local jurisdictions could really go after once we have that on board.
Another follow-up to that, we are also establishing a EV working group for the region for anyone who might be interested in attending those meetings. We have had one a meeting thus far, and I believe we're going to try to schedule another one either in September or October. It'll kind of depend on our speakers' availability. But the intent of that was to try to bring some education, bring in some subject matter experts who can speak to some of these grants and opportunities, and then also just have some dialogue within the region for coordination efforts. You know, if somebody has implemented a project, perhaps others can learn from how did you do that, what went well, what didn't, that kind of thing. So I can certainly include you on those emails, or anybody you'd like to have join.
So what does EV stand for?
Electric vehicle, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Councilmember Hanson, your mic is on.
I would just like to, this is Kelly Case, Mayor Pro Tem in Woodland Park. Just a quick echo of the sentiment shared with Highway 24 West. It's significant, and I do agree that I'd like to see more attention in that direction. Thank you, ma'am. Sir.
All right, thank you. Stan stepped out for just a moment, so I'm taking over for just a minute until he gets back to keep this moving along. So is there any other comments or questions from anybody online or in the room?
Mayor Wilson, I would just like to remind, although we have all these great comments, all we're doing today is approving this study for putting it out for public comment.
Correct, yes.
Which we're hoping that those of us that have made comments, hoping to get more of those from the public and then work from there on the answer to them, correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that clarification. Kind of like, I know Stan really wants to vote on this, so I'm kind of, can we just take?
We have a few more slides.
Oh, go ahead. Go right ahead with your slides then. Okay.
Next slide, please. So again, this is a map, and it compares the registered EVs currently to the existing charging locations. And you can see the largest amounts of EVs currently registered in our area are largely to the southeast and I'm sorry, southwest and northwest of the Colorado Springs downtown area. So Monument, for instance, has a large number of EVs compared with the rest of our region. And again, locating those existing charging stations on that map and having that data for folks perhaps can help them to find locations where perhaps folks do have EVs but don't have charging stations available to them. Next slide, please. We do have a section in our document that refers to challenges for EV adoption. And this is not by any means an all-encompassing list of challenges. What we really focused on at this point was topics that are tailored toward discretionary grant criteria. So for instance, you know, regional concerns that folks may have related to elevation or climate, awareness of electric vehicles in the area, what their capabilities are, affordability of these vehicles, and of the charging stations, accessibility, and that specifically in some of the grants they talk about multifamily housing. So we did include in the document a graph or a map of the hotspots of multifamily housing density, which are largely in downtown Colorado Springs, a couple other pockets throughout the urban area. We also have a graph, pie chart of housing demographics, which shows, I believe, 72% of housing within our Council of Governments region are single family housing. And that, again, goes toward what kind of charging you're going to be looking at implementing in your area. And then we also do talk a bit about disproportionately impacted communities. And we specifically included this topic because of the emphasis on disproportionately impacted communities within the grant opportunities that we are either anticipating or have seen come out thus far. And the data for that comes from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. Next slide, please. And so what the following section, I believe we're in section 3 of the document now, which talks about citing factors and some recommendations. We have some text that discusses some of those specific placement factors that entities may consider. And some of those include land use, for example, commercial land use. Where might retailers be interested in putting these electric charging stations? Workplaces that's a consideration, and we have some text to talk about that. We also have a chart in the document. It's not on the slide, but it's in the document that talks about vehicle dwell times. So basically, how long is your vehicle sitting in a parking lot while you're in the mall or at a movie theater, those kinds of things, because those again can be things that folks can use to put into a grant packet to justify funding for a station at a particular location, say, you know, a stadium or a highly concentrated retail center, things like that. And then we also talk a bit about major corridors, major CDOT corridors, not necessarily the federally designated EVs, but you know, the states and highways in our region that we feel should be looked at for potential support to not only residents, but also tourists. And this map in particular looks at the density of commercial land use within the region. And again, this can be disseminated to folks who might be interested in it for, you know, more specific areas, because I know it's hard to see on the 3-county region what those densities are.
Yeah, I have Mayor, go ahead, and then I'll have a question after the mayor.
I guess I've seen obviously lots of, you know, EV plate charging stations, and by law, you're required to have a certain number of ADA parking spaces at places. I have yet to see an ADA electric vehicle charging station. And I think we need to make sure that we have that in our considerations.
Okay.
That for larger places like malls and different places, I think that could be a factor that we need to be considering.
I have not actually seen anything on that, so I will do a little bit of research, see if our staff can come up with any information on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I have a question as well. You know, as we're going through the charts and you're providing more explanation, I think it's becoming increasingly clear. This is actually really a study, the term you want to use. It's a study about the transportation electrification infrastructure. Because now there's a couple of charts in here that talk about the vehicles themselves, but there's really not much of treatment on what I think is the #1 most important issue about whether a community can electrify or not, and that's whether the community can afford to buy the electric vehicles, because they're expensive. So, and that's standard market practice. You know, you get to a place where you've got 2 products and one's very expensive and one isn't. And then the expensive product doesn't sell because people can't afford it. They go for the less expensive product. So you get into a research and development process and someone tries to drive that price down. And you eventually get to a crossover point where it becomes clear to the consumer that that product that was originally expensive now has enough merit in it. You know, maybe it's still a little bit more expensive, but it's a lot more reliable or something like this, that people start to cross over and start to buy the other one. So we don't really have a treatment of that in this study. And I think it's the most important thing about how you're going to get to electrification. So knowing that's not really treated, and if it probably should be treated if you were talking about a transportation electrification study, it almost feels to me now like the title should include the word infrastructure.
Certainly.
Because I think that's what you're talking about, charging vehicles, charging stations, excuse me. And that allows you to not have to try to figure out how to address crossover points and pricing of vehicles and so forth. Otherwise, it become almost imperative based on, the title. So may I make that recommendation?
It's a great point, and that's this is all part of the public comment process. So
Yeah.
we'll factor this into updating when we update the document. Yeah,
Okay, great.
good.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, please proceed.
Next slide, please. So what we did here was to overlay some of these placement factors on one map so that you can see there are areas of purple on our map that denote where multiple placement factors overlap. And again, we've included the existing charging stations for reference as well. And these placement factors are population density, population per square mile over 5,000 people, the census tracts being over 50 or 25% commercial, the major CDOT corridors, disproportionately impacted communities, and then also multifamily housing units. And again, we've chosen these particular placement factors in this graphic because of their because they are elements of existing grant proposal or existing RFPs. Next slide.
If
I'm
I
sorry.
could, just for
Yes.
Councilwoman Avila's benefit, it's, as I'm reading this, if I'm understanding it correctly, the overlays are designated, Yolanda, on roadways through Park County, Teller County, El Paso County, and it's parts of 285, it's parts of Highway 9 between Fairplay to Alma, it's parts of 24 in Park County. I'm not way past on 24, way past Woodland Park. It's in Teller County. Anyway, it's really covering these roadways. I don't think I fully understand what this particular graphic is trying to demonstrate.
And I'll offer an additional comment as well, kind of along the same lines, but on a slightly different part of this. You have this kind of a bright purple, and then you have on the left population square miles greater than or equal to 5,000. If you don't dig into the chart, it suggests the purple is population areas greater than 5,000 per square mile. But that can't be true because the population density of Colorado Springs is 2,300 people per square mile. So if the purple is expressing a particular density over 5,000, there would be no purple in the Colorado Springs area at all.
Right.
So
The purple is actually intersected placement factor. So it's areas where where there's multiple placement factors, if that makes sense.
it's hard to read, I guess. Is that what it
It
says on the
is.
legend in the bottom left or something?
It does, but it is difficult to read. It is also on page 37 of the actual document. If you were interested in that. What we really identified through this graphic is a couple of areas that don't have any charging stations and could potentially benefit from some infrastructure. Those areas are between Woodland Park and Fairplay on US 24 and Colorado 9, Eastern El Paso County on US 24 and Colorado 94, US 85 near Bailey, Colorado 115 on the west side of Fort Carson, and also in the city of Fountain and the I-25 corridor near Fountain. Those are areas where we had multiple placement factors, but there seems to be a lack of existing charging stations.
If I could make a recommendation, that would just, and I can't find it in the version that's online, but that would be helpful to make as a bigger title on that page.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay.
I would agree. Because I can tell you, the chart fooled me. And what it made me do is go right down to what's the population density of Colorado Springs? Why is that all purple? Because I was working on the assumption the purple meant a population density. Okay, thanks. Yes, Councilmember Avila.
I know you've got to think of time and everything, and I'm still not, until Nancy said that, I'm getting an idea. But it's not just me. There's people that listen on the phone. There's, different things. People aren't able to see it. So it's not just me that literally can't see it, but other people that are using it. So I want to figure out a way how these can work, because did I know there was purple or yellow? No, it's nothing. So we need to figure out a way to make this really easy to read and understand.
Yes, I agree.
And maybe you get these from a bigger area. I don't know how you download it or what, but make it, then rework it to where you can present it and we can understand it. So I don't know. I don't want to, I'm not criticizing your work. I'm because maybe I just don't understand the complexity of what you have to deal with, and then how to make it, how to do these presentations. But a lot of people use the slides as a crutch, and it's like, you see here, there's this, and then next slide there, you see here, there's that. And even people that are sighted, I think, need to have a more robust explanation.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. And public speaking is not my forte, so please ask questions like that and ask for clarification.
Well, and to be fair also, I mean, when you've got charts, the intent of the chart is to present an enormous amount of information that would be very cumbersome to do by text. So like on this chart, for Councilmember Avila's benefit, but yeah, and it's okay. I mean, to all the other charts are
Dan,
also as complicated.
when I hear for council members' benefit, it really makes me feel uncomfortable.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
And I hear that often. And so it's like, that's why I said people are listening on their phones, and it's for everybody's benefit, to have a very clear and as most possible that people can just look at it as a glance. I got it, and it can be told, this, and this and that.
So on the chart is also 3 different types of chargers, and they're color coded in yellow, or yellow and orange, or orange. And then there's these purple areas, and then there's the entire COG boundary. So it has all 3 counties. And there's just a lot of data on the chart.
This is an overwhelming chart. If I was dialed in on my phone, I could not see this. If I was watching this on an iPad, I probably would be trying to zero in and follow along. So I think this chart is just a little bit too complicated. And she's enlarged it greatly for us, and I really appreciate that, but it's just still, I couldn't see the key down. You can see better than I can, Stan, because I couldn't see the key down there, and I've been trying to figure out what all the different colors stood for. So,
Mr. Chair, all points very well taken. We'll unpack this one a little bit. There's a lot of information in there. So yeah, this is good feedback. Yep.
Absolutely. I would encourage you to read that particular page of the document. And if you still have questions, please let us know, because we do want to make it understandable and usable, and not, we want to decomplicate it as much as possible. So no, we definitely appreciate these comments, and we'll keep that in mind going forward. Can you move to the next slide, please, Dolly? Also within that section of the actual document, we've included a few other considerations. And again, these are items that folks who may be looking to place a charging station may wish to include in their grant applications. So this includes, there is anticipated growth in EV adoption in the area. There is some information in the actual study that points to existing market shares for EVs. And there has been a small increase in that market share. We talk a little bit about specific charging station types, and then we also talk a bit more about population and development growth, because we recognize that there may be some areas where there are existing charging stations, but some entity may still wish to increase the number of charging stations or the type of charging stations. So we wanted to encompass as many of those opportunities as we can as well. Next slide, please. And then finally, our final section of the study is an implementation section. Again, we do not specify particular projects or prescribe how someone should implement anything. What we do have is a list of approaches and incentives that could potentially be used to encourage EV deployment. We include a list of planning considerations, things that folks should consider when they consider a project or a particular location. We include some information about the US DOT Rural Electrification Toolkit, which has been developed to assist rural areas with charging station and infrastructure projects. We have some information about CDOT resources that are available. And then we also have a couple of pages of funding opportunities. And again, these are not, it's not all encompassing. We don't list every single opportunity that could potentially fund EVs, but we just hit some of the highlights in our region. This graphic is not really intended to be read, but it's included for illustrative purposes. This was created by the FHWA, and it shows just how many federal funding streams there are that could potentially be used for EVs. And we do have a link to this particular document for anybody who is interested in that. Do we have any questions on this? There is within that particular document. Yes. I didn't intend to actually talk about each of the specific funding streams at this point. But just to show that it is complicated and there are a lot of potential monies out there. No, you're fine. One more slide, Dolly. And these are just a few of our key references that we refer to within the study itself. We relied heavily on data from the Colorado Energy Office. We pulled some information from the Colorado Automobile Dealers Association. There was a study done published by the International Council on Clean Transportation that had quite a few details and charts that we pulled from to include in our study. Colorado Department of Public Health and Information data, CDOT resources, of course, and Charge Ahead Colorado. So we wanted to just let you know where some of our key information came from. The study has a more extensive references list in the back. And at this point, I would be happy to walk you through any particulars, give you any more information. But what we're looking for today, as has been discussed, is just a approval to release this to public comment.
Great, thank you. And I think we've got some modifications, some very slight modifications, just in changing the word plan to study, adding the word infrastructure in the title, and open up the floor if there are any other comments with regard to the document. I will say I appreciate the work that you all have put into this. It's not an easy topic. There's a lot of information in the charts, an enormous amount of information in the charts. And it's our first, I guess, real deep dive into trying to find out, characterize what we've got presently so that our members, be they counties or municipalities, have some baseline documentation that they can use as reference material, which I think is an obligation when they're submitting for grants. So this becomes one of the documents that they have as a requirement.
Right. If I could just share, Mr. Chair, that we've been hearing that there's a lot of demand, a lot of interest among community members, our jurisdictions to put this together. So really appreciate the great work that Danelle and Casey Fortman, Casey may be online as well, that they did to pull all this stuff together. If we hired a consultant, it would have cost a whole lot more money, but they did it all in-house and really did an amazing job. So appreciate their efforts there.
Great. That's outstanding. Are there any comments from any of the board members? Yes, Council Member Donaldson.
Danelle, how long will it be out for public comment?
30 days.
30 days. And then at the end of that 30 days, what happens?
At the end of that 30 days, we internally will have some discussions on the comments that we received. Depends on the nature of the comments and what our scope can really go into. For example, we may get a lot of comments regarding the utility companies and the electric grid. That's something that we've heard already from some folks, and it wasn't really part of our original scope. So that might be something we discuss internally to say, is this something we really want to or need to dig into for this particular study? I do know that the Colorado Energy Office has been in quite a lot of discussions regarding that particular issue. So that might be one that we decide that's not in our scope, or it might be. It just kind of depends on what the nature of the comments are. After that, of course, we will implement the comments. We will bring all of the comments back through our committee process and seek adoption of a finalized document in the future.
When do you expect that would be? So 30 days from now, then?
If we close the public comment period 30 days, say 3 months
Okay,
approximately.
about 3 months from now. When people submit comments, do they get a reply?
Certainly, yes.
Okay, so we reply to that and then perhaps incorporate it or take their suggestions. Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Yeah, kind of an ignorant question, but where will the notice be published?
It will be published in the Gazette. It will also be distributed as a news release to all the local news agencies. We also physically post it outside here. And that's generally our standard practice for public comment periods.
Is there any online
Yes,
notification?
it will be on our website.
Okay, very good. Yes, please.
Yeah, I also want to thank you for all the work that you put into this. It's a very important study. It just made me think about, though, do we want to, is there any reason to not go at least to Colorado Springs Utilities for input on this directly and making sure that we have someone from utilities taking a look at this?
We certainly can do that. I know that that the city has a draft electric vehicle plan or readiness plan. And I know they have talked extensively with Colorado Springs Utilities. I can certainly.
The Office of Sustainability?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So we can reach out to them and see, if it's worth talking to them. Our particular document includes El Paso County, Teller County, and
right,
Park County.
of
So there
course.
would be multiple utility providers. In
Okay,
those
so it's
areas.
really up to us as board members to determine where
Yes.
do we need to get it. And okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. To that point, though, I think that's an interesting question. I mean, what's considered today is the public comment part of this. But often from PPACG, we do send out requests for review of PPACG documents, and we're doing a review here, but I don't know if you've taken that opportunity to send it to the members. I mean, you could send it to the board here, but you've often sent it also like to the county. You would send it to the county administrator and ask them for input as well.
It strikes me, I mean, I'm just going to make sure that the Office of Sustainability and Colorado Springs Administration has this and knows about it, and they can choose to comment or not, and someone at utilities. I mean, I don't know why I wouldn't do that, or, I don't know if my fellow city council members agree, but anybody who might have services in your municipality or your county, it just strikes me as good collaboration around something and not just the general public.
Yeah, we will do that as key stakeholders to both of those departments, CSU and Sustainability Office. But if you know of others that we should share it with, we're happy to do that. Yes.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And we did talk about this at the city, county, and town managers meeting. So they are at least aware that this exists, and but we can certainly.
I think it's, those are great places to increase awareness, but then when it comes down to here's our review time, the push out becomes important, just simply because we're also busy reviewing so many documents, producing our own documents and responding to other challenges. That push out, I think, is useful. And I think you do that as a regular matter, of course, anyway. Yeah. Okay. All right. Are there any other comments or questions with regard to item 6C? All right. At this point, then I'll entertain a motion. And if you could include, thank you. Would you be willing to include in that motion the words infrastructure and replacement of plan with study?
I would be willing to do that. Yes.
Okay. There's a motion with those amendments. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor Dixon.
Thank you very much. That's a motion and a second. Any last comments or questions from anybody? And hearing none, let's proceed with the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And is there anybody opposed? All right, that also passes. Let's move on to item number 7, item 7A. Yes,
Mr.
please.
Chair, if I could throw a little bit of a curveball, if you're okay with this, because I know Barb Watson has a conflict that she needs to run off to here momentarily. But with the information items, we're going to see if there's a possibility to perhaps delay the congestion management process, which would have been next as far as a presentation. Danelle has done double and triple duty today, so I think we can maybe give her a break and bring that back next month. But I know Barb, for item 7C, I'm not suggesting this because it's my favorite topic, but she needs to run. So if you can take that out of order, that would be appreciated.
So you're recommending 7C at this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you've got
Okay.
a moment, Barb, yeah.
Let's go ahead and proceed with that. Thank you.
Good morning. The mic is on. Good morning. Thank you for your indulgence. I'm Barb Watson, PPACG HR Manager. And my item has to do with the evaluation of the Executive Director. In your board packet was the timeline outlined. Yesterday, I sent an email to board members and others regarding the 360-degree evaluation. That evaluation will be sent out in an email tomorrow to board members and 8 others, outside partners, from Heather Newton of Employers Council. The details were in the email that I sent out yesterday. The results of that will be available at the end of the month, and then I will supply the results or send the results to the board members, to the executive committee. At the October board meeting, the evaluation form will be sent to board members so that you can complete it and return it to me by the end of the month so that I can compile the results for a November executive committee. So I'm requesting that we start the executive committee closed executive session early at 8 o'clock, just so we have plenty of time to go over all of the details that we go over.
And that would be the November meeting.
That would be the November meeting, yes. And so we go over the progress of his goals for this year. We set goals for 2023. We set and discuss salary and any bonus but we do not make a decision because we can't do that in executive session. We bring that to the December board meeting where you vote on it then. Any questions?
Any questions from any of the board?
No questions, but just a comment to please participate.
Thank
We can
you.
only get a good evaluation of our director if we have good participation. And we want a good review of the director. Okay.
He's probably hoping for that too.
No,
So-
I was, you can take that either way. It just, I would like lots of participation because there's been years, there's been as few as like 4 or 5 of us that did it. And we really don't get a good
Right.
round
It's not
look
useful.
at it. It's not useful. Even if you're new and you haven't been at this for a few months, please look through it. And if you don't have to answer every question, right?
Right.
And you
Right.
can just answer the ones that you're
Right.
comfortable with, or you can put non-applicable, or I don't know yet, and that's fine. But I'm sure there's something you can help with.
I agree. Your input is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I do appreciate the mayor's comments as well. It's great. Okay. Did you say that we were going to pass on 7A?
Yes, Mr. Chair, got confirmation. We can delay that at least
Okay.
until next month. So that'll come back later.
Very good. Let's move on then to 7B.
And Carol McBroom, our finance manager, is coming up, and this will be fairly brief as well. We're kicking off our budget process for FY 2023. I'll let her talk about what's in your packet and the timeline, and we'll talk about next steps then.
Yeah, good morning. The PPACG staff has begun the 2023 budget process. We're looking at funding sources and expenses. In addition, we're looking at internal staffing needs and wage expectations. And Mr. Gunning will speak more on that subject in a second. Today, I'm here to present the government member due allocation for 2023. The dues are calculated using the 2021 assessed values, which created some variances that you'll see from last year. We are not recommending any dues increase for this year. We believe the increase that we received last year will be enough to comfortably cover match and unreimbursable expenses in 2023. And to move forward, what we are hoping for that in September, we will come back and we will talk about major budget changes. In October, we will listen to your recommendations and your feedback. I will bring to you a draft budget. And then in November, we will present a final budget and we will be looking for the adoption of the budget.
Right, and if I could just add, Mr. Chair, you may recall that last year things stretched out a little bit longer because we sort of got hung up on the whole notion of what the salary pool increase should be for 2022. So we're trying to avoid that this time around. I think we ended up with budget adoption in December, trying to move it up so we can get it adopted in November, ideally. What we're going to do is start conversations early, including starting next week with the city, town, and county managers to find out what the jurisdictions are anticipating as far as pay increases for next year. So we can get in alignment with with what our local jurisdictions are doing. We'll also track other surveys that are done locally, regionally, like from Employers Council and other entities, just to give us a sense of the lay of the land and where we see things heading. So we'll talk more about that in subsequent budget updates here in the coming months, but just wanted to let you know we're starting that process, that part of it, a little bit earlier.
Great. I appreciate you doing that. We succeeded last year, but we did bring it down to the wire. Yeah. So it's good to plan early and work on things early. Thank you very much. Any questions on the item 7B from the members? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Seeing no further action on item 7, let's go to item 8 to H, the CDOT monthly update. And it's still good morning.
Yep. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll try to keep this very, very brief. Just have a few items to mention to you. First is 10-year plan update. You know, we've done a lot of work over about the last 9 months on that. I presented the results of all the work throughout entire Region 2 at Transportation Commission last month. Didn't receive any comments or concerns. The current plan going forward in terms of plan adoption is regions 1 and 4, region 1 being the Denver metro area, basically, and region 4 being Northeastern Colorado, are presenting their plans at Transportation Commission next week. And the hope will be that Transportation Commission will adopt the updated plan in September at their meeting next month. So hopefully that'll come to closure and we'll be on our way in terms of delivering all of those projects. Also just want to recognize, and the chair, Commissioner Vanderwerf, participated in this, the 115 groundbreaking. So very exciting. If you recall, we had to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to award that project and get it off the ground. So we definitely appreciate, again, all the participation and the cooperation with all of our planning partners. But that project is now off and running, so it is under construction officially. MAMSIP project, we've completed the traffic switch on the most visible portion of the project, which is I-25. And so now we're actually running in, 2 lanes head-to-head configuration, basically on the southbound portion of the interstate. And really working hard and fast, trying to, rebuild the other portion of the interstate that's currently vacated now, because we were able to move traffic off of it. So making a lot of good progress. I know when we started out with this project, we were having a lot of issues with accidents throughout the entire corridor. Well, it's not entirely accident free. We did lower the speed limit and has actually greatly improved the number of accidents we've been seeing throughout that stretch as well. So that's good to see. And our contractors making great progress there. The final thing I just want to mention is, our project at Powers and Research, the interchange project, is making great progress right now. Actually, traffic is going over the bridge on the interstate on that corridor. And we're looking forward trying to plan an actual ribbon cutting ceremony for that particular project. Nothing firm yet, trying to coordinate calendars, but right now we have a tentative hold date for September 19th for a ribbon cutting for that particular project. So, and that's all I have, unless there's questions about other specific issues.
Any comments from anybody? Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Roland Gardine, Tal Callahan. I want to just tell you, thank you, man, for putting the buffeting systems on both sides, in medium and in the center of the highway on 24. It's actually getting people to start paying attention, and you guys put that in. I think it's going to be a big asset. So I'll tell you, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Great comments. Anything else? I'll just express my gratitude. A lot of groundbreakings, a lot of ribbon cuttings, a lot of great work going on. And thank you. And we're working together, and that's what's delivering this. So that's really awesome. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the STAC committee update. Who is providing that today?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Because Commissioner Williams had surgery, she wasn't able to attend, so I did, and it was very interesting, and I'd say I participated quite a bit. But I would like to have Mr. Leosatos kind of summarize it. I actually left my notes at home today, so a large portion, John, you'll remember what that was about. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, and actually I was trying to look it up on my phone, but the packet was so big, I can't download it on my phone. But it was one of those ones where they kind of go over a lot of things. I think the one new item was the CDOT now has their own, I can't remember her official title, but Environmental Justice Officer, and how they were going to do sort of the training for the CDOT staff and do that. Councilmember Donaldson had some very appropriate questions, but did not pull any punches. But basically said, how is this all going to impact us? And what's the bottom line? But apparently there's going to be a lot of additional training for the folks at CDOT and some other sorts of processes that are put in place for the, it's not the normal sort of protected, federal, it's protected populations. At the state, it's
Disadvantage, was it?
yeah, disadvantaged populations. So this person's been brought on board to sort of identify that how CDOT is going to react to the disadvantaged populations and what processes are going to be put in place to make sure they do that. I think there was an extensive conversation on disadvantaged business enterprises and that sort of thing. And again, just wanted to clarify how that all sort of would work. And what the bottom line is at. But I think that was it. Commissioner Ellesmere, did you remember anything else? But otherwise, I think we got an update on GHG as always, and we got another update on, I think, transit. I didn't remember anything that sort of jumped out as new.
Yeah, thank John. This is Dick Ellesmere.
Yes, please.
There really wasn't a whole lot that was new, except for the new person on the environmental justice, or not environmental, but the other one. Everything else we've seen before, we've talked about, we've tried to point out where there are holes and what they want to do, but it's kind of going along the same way.
I think
Okay.
That's all we have to report. Mr.
Okay.
Chair, thank you.
Any questions? All right, seeing none. Thanks, everybody, for your input. Let's move on to the executive director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two items related to your September meetings, and one starting with the board workshop on Friday, September the 9th. I sent out a calendar invite as sort of a save the date with the hope that we could do an expanded workshop, kind of mini retreat, sort of like we did back in December, hoping to do something like this. And for the September workshop date, if we could, there's a variety of things we could use some feedback on that could help inform our budget process for 2023 and our work plan for 2023. Some newer type initiatives that we wanted to bring forward for board direction on. So if it looks like we're getting enough critical mass and enough support to be able to make it on that Friday, September the 9th, roughly from 8:30 till 12:30-ish, we'll wrap up with lunch. Then we'll nail that down and move forward with putting an agenda together. So I know I chatted with the chair, vice chair so far who are free, and hoping that we can hear some additional thumbs up that folks are available for that as well. And if you can't make it for the whole thing, I get it as well. It's a chunk of a commitment of 4 hours. Okay.
Just to make sure, are you asking right now if people can maybe take a look at their calendars and see, or do you want to?
You can let me know offline. I'm going to
Okay.
send out a few things as a follow-up to today's meeting. Some of the slides that were presented, I
Okay.
think the dates for the community conversations that Jody mentioned, and a few other things. And I'll ask for a response when I send that out later on today or tomorrow morning.
Very good. Thank you.
Very good. The other thing real quick related to September is had a good chat with Teller County Commissioner Eric Stone. He had a conflict and couldn't make it today, but he offered to host the next regular meeting in September on Wednesday, September 14th up in Teller County. And we've talked about holding a remote meeting at some point, Park or Teller. And he said that we could use their relatively new sheriff's office training center in Divide that day that has really good Zoom capabilities, a nice room that's set up that'll be large enough to accommodate us. So my hope is that, as the chair has mentioned before, he could convene the meeting up there, and folks that can make it to Divide, it's just about another half an hour from here up the pass. That would be a good show of support and hear what's going on up in Teller County and some of the communities up there. Look forward to that opportunity. Folks that can't make it physically could Zoom in for it, either here in our conference room or maybe ideally at home or in your office, to make it easier on some of our staff as we're going through our transition with our office manager situation that I mentioned earlier. So meeting in Divide, and then others that have to Zoom in could certainly Zoom.
Great.
So, yeah.
And just for everyone's awareness, I'll be chairing that meeting from Divide. I plan on going. I'm looking forward to that. And I hope some people have challenges with their schedules and just simply would not be able to make that. But I would encourage you to consider going there. It's just a show of support for Teller County to hold one of our meetings there. And we're also working on trying to get one out at Park County. Same kind of situation. Don't know if we'll get there or not, but I know Commissioner Elsner is working on that with us. So
yeah, we ran into a standing conflict in Park County, and we're still trying to figure out if we can make something work. Going to be hard to pull it off this fall, but yeah, looking forward to doing this. Teller will be our first foray into this space, but it gives the communities up there, we'd like to give them a little bit of time on the agenda to update what's happening in Teller County, Cripple Creek, Victor, and Woodland Park, to give a bit of an update on things that the rest of the board should know about.
great.
Yeah.
Is there any chance like CDOT can have a van if people want to carpool? Maybe you can do like a project update on the way up there or something,
That would be good use of
We
time.
hadn't contemplated that to date, but I can check and see if we have a vehicle available.
Okay.
And be able
We'll
to,
talk.
maybe one of the vans we used, I think to do our tour a couple months ago.
Mhm. Yeah, we'll stop at the donut wheel in Woodland Park.
Look at the cooperating going on. Donut sharing, van sharing. I love it. It's good.
How about electric bus?
Yeah. How about an electric bus? There we go.
Mr. Chair,
Nancy really enjoyed that comment. So there you go.
I actually would love to go up, and unfortunately have a breakfast that I need to be at right before that, so won't be able to. I'm really sorry because I was
Yeah.
looking forward to.
That's the
to
way
that.
that's the way it plays out. We all have busy schedules. So I'm sure you'll dial into the meeting, but you'll be doing it from here.
I'll be here in case something happens with your technology up there. I'll be here so we can
Okay.
keep the moving forward.
Moving.
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, Commissioner
Dick
Elsner.
Elsner. My hand was raised, but I would encourage everybody to go. The facility that they're offering, we had our CFR TPR meeting there, and it is a great facility. My only comment would be, and you can direct this back to Commissioner Stone, that the donuts need to be fresher. The 2-day-old donuts just didn't quite cut it that we had for the Central Front Range. So I heard someone else may have offered donuts. I'm hoping they're new donuts, not old donuts.
See, we're all friends working together and telling each other, hey, your donuts need to be fresher. I love it. All right, thank you. Anything else? Okay, very good. Do we have any member entity announcements? Anybody would like to make an announcement or two about what's going on in their county, something to bring up? I did my announcement earlier. I'll just reiterate it. Monday, 11 o'clock will be the funeral for Deputy Sheriff Peary. And that will be at the New Life Church, but I think you all made that note already. Are there any other announcements? All right, seeing none, just to remember, next meeting, September 14, Teller County, if you can make it. And seeing no further business on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Okay, they put it on the table. I'm going to use it.
No, I mean, when you go up to the-
Oh, yeah, I didn't think about that.
I had to do a meeting. Yolanda, we head upstairs.
I gotta run in there real quick.
Okay, I'll see you.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.